The morning my world broke apart, the sun still rose. It was a Tuesday, I remember that much. Daniel had kissed me on the forehead before leaving for work. His usual kiss, his usual warmth. His voice had still been groggy, and he joked about needing a third cup of coffee just to make it to his morning meeting. He said, "I'll be home before dinner, promise." But by lunchtime, I was sitting on the kitchen floor, the phone pressed against my ear, staring blankly at the refrigerator door while the paramedic's voice played over and over in my head like a broken record. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. He didn't make it." Just like that. No warning, no lead-up, just the world splitting open beneath my feet, and nothing solid left to stand on. I remember my fingers trembling as I dialed my parents. I wasn't calling for solutions. I wasn't even thinking. I just needed someone, anyone, to tell me this wasn't real. The phone rang, then clicked. My mother picked up. "Mom," I choked. "Daniel, he's gone. They said he didn't make it." Silence. I could hear the faint echo of music in the background, pop songs, laughter, voices. Then came her reply, hesitant, clipped. "Oh, honey, I don't think we can come right now. It's your sister's birthday tonight. You know how important it is for her." I blinked, not sure if I'd heard her right. She continued, voice lower now, as if embarrassed to be saying it out loud. "She's been planning this party for months. The caterer, the decorations. We really can't just cancel everything. I'm sure you understand." Understand? I had just lost my husband, the man who held me when I cried, who built pillow forts with our daughter on rainy Sundays, who whispered, "I love you," like a habit, like breathing. And they were talking about balloons? I didn't remember hanging up. I don't even remember the next few hours, but I do remember the hollowness that followed. It wasn't just Daniel I had lost. It was something else, something that had always quietly lived beneath the surface of my family's love. A condition, an if. We'll be there if it doesn't inconvenience us. We love you if it doesn't ruin the party. We care if you don't need too much. The days that followed were a blur of funeral arrangements, condolence flowers, and frozen meals dropped off by friends. My parents did eventually show up, 3 days later, after the party. They arrived in matching outfits and brought leftover cupcakes. My sister had posted a full photo dump on Instagram, #bestbirthdayever. I kept seeing the comments. "You deserve the world. So glad your family came through." Came through for her. No one came through for me. And yet, in the quiet moments, when our daughter, Mia, would ask if Daddy was still in the stars, I had to keep standing. I had to stay strong for her. Because the world hadn't just broken for me, it had broken for her too. And then, just as I started to find fragments of myself again, the second betrayal came. It was a letter, hand-delivered, no warning, from my parents' attorney. A request. No, a demand. They wanted 50% of Daniel's life insurance and inheritance, to support family needs, it said, to help your sister and her new business. That was when Mia walked in and saw the letter in my hands. She read my face before reading the paper. 8 years old, but already far too familiar with disappointment. She didn't cry. She just went back to her room. That night, she handed me something, scribbled on notebook paper, torn at the edges. It was an invoice. A child's handwriting. Simple. Love and support invoice. To Grandma and Grandpa. Amount, due. Being there when Mommy cried, $1,000. Skipping the party to come help, $5,000. Hugging me when I missed Daddy, $2,000. Saying I love you and meaning it, priceless. Total, you owe us everything you didn't give. I didn't cry reading it, not right away. But later, when Mia was asleep, I held it in my hands and realized that this page, this truth, this little girl who still had the courage to call things what they were, this was the beginning of a new chapter. They hadn't just failed me, they had failed her. And for the first time since Daniel died, I didn't feel powerless anymore. The morning after Mia gave me the invoice, I taped it to the fridge. It sat there between a finger-painted sun she made in kindergarten and a photo of Daniel holding her on his shoulders at the beach. He was mid-laugh in that picture. Pure joy. Like he couldn't imagine anything better than being her dad. I stood there, watching the paper flutter slightly with the breeze from the kitchen window. I hadn't planned to call my parents again, not after the letter. But my phone rang that afternoon, their number flashing like a ghost. I let it ring once, twice. Then I picked up. Hello? My mother didn't waste time. We saw your post. I hadn't posted anything. What post? She hesitated. The invoice? Mia's little note? You shared it? I hadn't shared it, not yet. But I had sent it to one person, my cousin Beth, and Beth didn't hold secrets well. Or maybe she held them exactly as long as it took to drop them into the family group chat. I stayed silent. You made us look heartless, my mother snapped. That's not fair. I almost laughed. Fair? I wanted to say, I was burying my husband while you were lighting candles on a birthday cake, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. She continued, You're letting your grief cloud everything. We've always tried to support you, but Daniel's death, well, you can't let it ruin the whole family dynamic. The whole family dynamic. As if his death was just a bad dinner guest. I'm not letting grief ruin anything, I said, voice steady. I'm letting truth rearrange the room. There was a pause on the other end. Then, this is about the inheritance, isn't it? About the money? No, I said. This is about you asking for half of what Daniel left to support your daughter's business while mine is still learning to sleep without her dad. Another pause, longer this time. Then, like a switch had flipped, her voice changed, cold, businesslike. We'll speak to our attorney. She hung up. And just like that, any illusion of family vanished. Over the next few weeks, I focused on Mia, on helping her draw constellations with a flashlight on her bedroom ceiling, on grief counseling, on making breakfast in the morning instead of letting sadness set the table. I didn't expect what came next. A formal invitation, mailed in a gold-trimmed envelope with embossed letters. You are cordially invited to celebrate the grand opening of Lily's Luxe Lounge, a boutique owned by Lily Ann Walters, sponsored by friends and family. There was even a note scrawled inside. We hope you'll come. It would mean a lot to your sister. She still misses you. Misses me? They had erased me, and now I was expected to clap while they popped champagne over my husband's money? But I wasn't angry. Not exactly. I was something colder, clearer, resolved. I didn't RSVP. I didn't call. I didn't post anything. But I did send a message, just not in words. Because when I saw the lounge's launch announcement on social media, I remembered one thing, the building lease. Daniel and I had once looked at that same location when he'd dreamed of opening a small coffee shop. He'd backed out, but we had still kept some paperwork. My name had stayed on a private list of potential first option buyers for the space. I had completely forgotten about it, until now. And wouldn't you know it? The contract hadn't been finalized, not yet. The building owner was still reviewing applications, and they remembered my name. The day before the grand opening, my sister got a call from her contractor. The space had been sold. To me. No lawsuit, no rage post, no screaming. Just a locked door on launch day and a white piece of paper in the window that read, Venue under new ownership. Thank you for your patience. Mia and I went to the beach that weekend. She built sandcastles, I drank bad coffee and let the waves drown out the noise in my head. I still hadn't told her everything. She was 8, and some wounds were too deep for that kind of skin. But she saw the lightness in my shoulder. Family. That word had started to taste like rust in my mouth. The lounge space sat dark for days. Rumors swirled online about unexpected legal complications and permits pulled last minute. But I stayed silent. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. Their silence after Daniel's death had taught me that much. Sometimes silence is its own kind of truth. And then, just like clockwork, the next message came. From my parents. A formal invite to a family dinner. No apology, no explanation, just a dinner at their house, Sunday, 6:30. The same dining room where Daniel once carved the Thanksgiving turkey. The same house they hadn't stepped out of when I needed them most. I didn't reply. I showed up. Not to eat, to deliver. I arrived in black slacks and a blouse Daniel had always loved. Mia stayed home with a sitter. I didn't want her anywhere near what I was about to walk into. They were already seated at the table when I walked in. My sister looked up, her expression a mix of shock and fury. My mother smiled thinly. "You came?" I laid a thick envelope on the table before they could say another word. "What's this?" my father asked, already defensive. "Legal clarity," I said. "Since we've apparently moved on from family values to itemized demands." Inside the envelope were documents from my attorney. Proof of Daniel's sole life insurance beneficiary designation, me. A formal cease and desist against any attempts to extract funds under emotional duress. An updated trust structure protecting Mia's future education and living expenses. My father flipped through the pages with a scowl. My mother clutched her pearls like a prop. And Lily just looked stunned. "I'm not asking for anything from you," I said, voice calm, "but you're not getting anything from us either. This ends here." Lily slammed her napkin down. "You always think you're better than the rest of us, just because Daniel made decent money." "He died, Lily," I cut in sharply, "and I begged you to be there." The room went silent again. That kind of silence that bends the air, makes the light feel too bright. "You weren't just absent," I continued. "You were celebrating while I was burying my husband, and then you thought you could spin grief into profit." My mother leaned forward, tears brimming, but I had no energy for theatrics. "This isn't revenge," I said quietly. "This is boundaries, and if you don't know the difference, that's not my problem anymore." I left them there, sitting in a room full of warm food and cold hearts. That night, back home, I tucked Mia into bed. She looked up to me sleepily. "Did you tell them?" "I did," I said. She nodded. "Good. Daddy would want us to be safe." "Yeah," I whispered. "He would." I turned out the lights and sat by her door for a while, listening to her steady breathing. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I was wrong. Because just 2 days later, a letter arrived from my grandfather's estate attorney. There had been a will, and my name was on it, but not in the way anyone expected. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, no return address, but the emblem embossed on the back was unmistakable. Sutton and Gray, estate attorneys. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. My grandfather, Arthur Sutton, had passed almost a year before Daniel. Quietly, no drama, no last-minute hospital scenes. Just an old man who fell asleep in his chair and never woke up again. We'd been close once. When I was little, I was his shadow, always following him through the garden, helping him count the koi fish, listening to his stories about the war and how he built his business from nothing. But after I married Daniel, things got distant. Not because of him, but because my parents kept us apart. They said he was too old-fashioned, that he was losing touch. But he had never forgotten me. The letter began formally, as these things often do. To Miss Caroline Walters, this letter accompanies the official reading and execution of the last will and testament of Arthur Jonathan Sutton, dated March 18, 20XX. I sat down and read the next line 3 times before it sank in. Per the terms of Mr. Sutton's will,
You are the sole beneficiary of his estate, including the house, remaining assets, and full ownership of Sutton Holdings. What? I blinked at the paper, heart pounding.
Suddenly, it all made sense. Why I never got a copy of the will. Why my parents said Grandpa didn't leave anything behind. They had hidden it. They had tried to bury me with him, and for a while, they'd succeeded. I contacted the estate attorney immediately. The voice on the other end was steady and calm. He'd been waiting for this. "Yes, Miss Walters," he said. "We've been trying to reach you for some time, but your parents and sister insisted that you were emotionally unwell after Daniel's death and that you had declined your right to be involved in any family business." "They what?" "They presented documentation," he added carefully, "but it was unsigned. We suspected it was a delay tactic." I sat in silence, every lie they'd told folding back over itself. He continued, "We are proceeding with the transition now. There's just one more thing." "What?" "There's a personal letter from your grandfather. He wrote it for you the day he finalized the will." It arrived the next day, just a single sheet of paper, in his familiar cursive. "Dear Caroline, if you're reading this, then it means the people around you have failed you in ways I feared they might. I saw what they did, the way they praised your sister while they dimmed your light. You were always stronger than you knew. I'm sorry I didn't speak up louder when I was alive, but I hope Dis speaks for me now. This is yours, because you've earned more than their crumbs, because I believe in the life you can build with it, and because I want Mia to grow up seeing what legacy really looks like. Take care of it, take care of her, and take care of yourself. You owe them nothing. With love, Grandpa." I clutched the letter like it was oxygen. He knew. Even back then, he knew. This wasn't about money. It was about recognition, about someone seeing me, even if too late to say it aloud. And just like that, the house of cards my family built began to tilt. Because while they were busy playing favorites, Grandpa had been playing chess, and I had just been handed the queen. The legal transfer of Sutton Holdings took less than a month. My name replaced my grandfather's on every title, deed, and document. The corporate account keys, access codes, and stakeholder shares were now under my control. Every property, every contract, even the building where my sister tried to launch her boutique belonged to me. But I didn't post about it. No triumphant status, no gotcha Instagram caption. I knew them too well. My family thrived in public drama, in narratives where they could play the victim. So instead, I did something far more dangerous to them. I said nothing. My mother called first. 3 missed calls in one day, then a voicemail. "Sweetheart, we should talk. There's no need to let a few misunderstandings damage what's left of our family. Your sister is very upset. Please, let's fix this." My father followed with an email, cold and precise, the kind he used in business negotiations. "Caroline, we understand you may be in possession of certain documents and assets that were intended to be shared. Your grandfather was a generous man, but surely you recognize that distributing the estate evenly is the fair thing to do." My terms? It was the first time in months they'd used my name instead of guilt or obligation. Progress, I suppose. But I wasn't interested in revenge. That's the part that baffled them the most. I didn't sell off the properties they loved. I didn't lock anyone out or press charges for fraud, though my lawyer assured me I had more than enough grounds. Instead, I got to work. I found a project Daniel and I once dreamed about, a local shelter on the verge of closing. I invested in its future, renamed it after him, and quietly expanded its mission. Housing, therapy, job training, a new garden for grieving children to plant seeds with their own hands. Mia helped pick the colors for the mural. And just like that, Daniel's name lived again, not on a stone, but on something growing. Meanwhile, the whispers started. Lily's luxury lounge became a running joke on local forums. She tried to pivot her story, claimed zoning issues, blamed suppliers, hinted at sabotage,
But even her followers could tell something wasn't right. And when people dug a little deeper and found that she'd used a dead man's insurance fund for her business proposal, the comments turned brutal. Still, I said nothing. I didn't need to, because the moment they realized I wasn't playing their game, they lost their power. One day, Mia came home from school holding a handmade card. It had big block letters across the top. What family means to me. Inside, she had drawn 3 stick figures, me, her, and Daniel with angel wings. Underneath, she'd written, "Family is who shows up, even when it's hard, even when it rains."
I kept it simple at first, just the broad strokes. How Grandpa had left me everything in his will. How some people didn't want me to know that. How they tried to keep it from me and from her. How I found out anyway. She listened, every word, not interrupting, just watching me, trying to fit this puzzle into the world she knew. "Did they steal from us?" she asked finally. Her voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed. "They tried," I said, "but they didn't succeed." She nodded slowly. Why would they do that? That question, that impossible question. I reached for her hand. Some people think love is about control, about what you give only when it's convenient. But love isn't love if it comes with strings. Grandpa saw what was happening, even when no one else did. That's why he left it to us, to protect us. She was quiet for a while, then asked, "So, are they still our family?" A pause. Then I told her the truth. "They're part of where we came from, but they don't get to be part of where we're going." She nodded again, then climbed into my lap and whispered, "I'm glad it's just us." And in that moment, I knew. She wasn't mourning the absence. She was grateful for the clarity. The next week, I made a decision. I returned to be a state attorney who had confessed. I didn't sue. I didn't drag my parents through court. But I did file a permanent legal block on any future claims they might try to make against Sutton Holdings. I made it public, quietly, legally, thoroughly. They wouldn't touch another cent of what was mine, or Mia's. And for the first time, I stopped looking over my shoulder. One afternoon, I walked through the office of Sutton Holdings, my office now. The team was small but loyal. Many had worked under Grandpa for decades. An older employee, Nora, approached me with a box of old files she'd found in storage. "From the early years," she said, "your grandfather wrote notes on everything. You might like these." Inside were scribbled memos, doodles, even a napkin where he'd written, "Caroline has vision. Don't let them dim it. If they do, build her a lighthouse." My throat tightened. I looked out the window at the city below, at buildings he had built and I now owned. He had seen me, long before I saw myself. And just as I was beginning to imagine a future free of interference, an envelope arrived. This time, not from a lawyer, but from Lily. Handwritten. No tricks, no lawyers. Just 5 words. "Please, meet me. One time." I didn't respond to Lily's note right away. I let it sit on my desk for 3 days, unopened. Not because I feared what it said, but because I feared I'd start hoping again. And hope, when it comes to her, has never been kind to me. But curiosity has a sharp edge. So I read it. "Caroline, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I wouldn't be writing if I wasn't already at the edge of everything. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything, except a conversation. You probably think I knew everything. I didn't. Not at first. But I didn't ask questions either, and that might be worse. If you ever believed that I was your sister once, not just someone who stood in your shadow, please meet me. One time. No parents, no noise. Just us. I'll be at the garden behind Grandpa's house, Saturday, 3 p.m. If you don't come, I'll understand, but I'll still be waiting. Lily." I almost didn't go, but something in the letter pulled at me. Not forgiveness, not even closure, just the need to see her face when she said it out loud. Saturday came. The garden hadn't changed much. Grandpa's koi pond still shimmered.
though the weeds were starting to creep in. The swing set we used to fight over was rusted now, nature reclaiming memory. Lily was already there, sitting on the bench in a beige coat that looked too expensive for how tired she seemed. She stood when she saw me, didn't smile, just hurt. "Hey." I nodded. "You got 5 minutes." She blinked, not surprised, just hurt. "I deserve that," she said quietly. "Maybe more." I didn't respond. She sat again, gestured for me to sit too. I didn't. She took a breath. "When Daniel died, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to be there, and I used that as an excuse to disappear." I folded my arms. "You didn't disappear. You threw a party." Her eyes welled up. "I know, and I'm ashamed of it. I thought, if I didn't look too close, I wouldn't have to feel it. Wouldn't have to feel like the worst daughter, the worst sister." I tilted my head. "So instead of being worse, you chose to be absent?" She nodded, tearfully. "Yes, and then it spiraled."
She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet pouch, shaky hands, eyes brimming. This was Grandpa's. He gave it to me to hold on to years ago, told me to give it to the right person when the time came. I thought he meant me, but now I think he meant you. She handed it to me. I opened it. Inside was a pendant, old, worn. I remembered it from when I was little. Carved on the back, "The ones who endure quietly are the ones who rise." I closed the pouch and met her eyes. "Thank you," I said. Then I turned and walked away. Not to end the chapter, but to begin my own. The pendant sat on my desk for 3 days. I didn't wear it, didn't put it away either. It just lay there, quiet and persistent, like a question I wasn't ready to answer. I caught myself glancing at it every time I walked by. The engraving echoed in my mind like a whisper. "The ones who endure quietly are the ones who rise." I hadn't just endured. I had survived loss, betrayal, abandonment, and still managed to build something solid beneath my feet. But rising, that was new. That was different. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this part of my life was supposed to be. A week after meeting Lily, I got a call from the principal of Mia's school. Nothing serious, just an invitation to speak at Career Day. "We'd love for you to talk about what it means to run a company," she said cheerfully. "Mia says you're the boss of everything." I laughed. Only the things worth managing. Still, the idea made me pause. I hadn't thought of myself that way before. Not really. Not as a role model. Not as someone who leads. But Mia, she had been watching me this whole time, learning not from my victories, but from my choices. Career Day came. I wore a navy blazer, clean lines, simple necklace, and, at the last minute, I fastened the pendant around my neck. Mia sat in the front row, beaming. I told the class about Sutton Holdings, about what it means to build something that lasts, to protect homes, to support communities, to plant ideas and watch them grow, even after storms. I didn't mention the betrayal, or the will, or the nights I cried on the kitchen floor while Mia slept upstairs. But I told them something else, something true. Sometimes you don't get to choose what breaks in your life, but you do get to choose what you build from the pieces. When it was over, Mia ran up and hugged me tight. "You did so good," she said, muffled in my shirt. "No," I whispered, holding her close. "We did." That night, I stood by the old bookshelf in my home office. On the shelf, a framed photo of Daniel holding Mia at the beach, the letter from Grandpa, and now, the velvet pouch holding the pendant. I placed something else beside them, a notebook. Blank. Waiting. Because maybe it was time I wrote my story. Not just to preserve it, but to honor it. To make sure that when Mia grows older, she doesn't just inherit property and bank accounts. She inherits truth. And the strength of a woman who rose from the wreckage. Then, just when things began to feel settled, an email arrived from a name I hadn't seen in years. Daniel's estranged brother.
Subject line: There's something you need to know about Daniel's other account. The email sat in my inbox with a weight that felt familiar, like grief had circled back, wearing a different face. Subject: There's something you need to know about Daniel's other account. From Elliot Wren, Daniel's brother. I hadn't heard from Elliot in over 7 years. He and Daniel had been close once, until a falling out I was never fully privy to. Something about a failed investment, a trust broken. After that, Daniel stopped speaking his name. And now, here he was, back, with something to reveal. My hands hovered over the keyboard longer than I'd like to admit. Then I clicked open. Caroline, first, I'm sorry for not reaching out sooner. I know I wasn't at the funeral. I didn't send flowers. I didn't say goodbye. I thought I didn't have the right. But lately, I've been going through Daniel's old files, and I found something I think you were meant to see. Before our fallout, Daniel opened a second investment account. It wasn't under his name directly. It was linked to an old college trust we both contributed to, back when we thought we'd go into business together. But here's the strange part. After he cut me off, he never touched the account again, until 3 months before he died. He moved everything into a private sub-account and listed it under one name, Mia Walters, pending maturity, age 21. The account is, and somewhere in the middle of both, I was about to find one more truth. The morning after watching Daniel's video, I felt lighter, not healed, but grounded. There's a difference. For the first time in a long time, I knew without question that he had thought about me, about us, about what would come after. But there was still something clawing at the edges of my mind, a thread I couldn't quite place, pulling at a memory I hadn't touched since the funeral. It started with a photo, one I hadn't looked at in months, tucked away in a forgotten corner of Daniel's old desk drawer. In the picture, Daniel and my grandfather, standing on the back patio, smiling like old friends. I remembered that day. Mia was barely 6. We had grilled burgers in the garden. My grandfather gave Daniel a leather journal, called it a legacy keeper. Daniel had left. "You think I'm poetic?" "No," Grandpa said, "but you're methodical. You write things down. That's a kind of poetry." I remember brushing off the moment. Now I wondered, where was that journal? I tore through boxes, closets, even the attic. Nothing. But then, in the basement safe, buried beneath old documents, I found it. Brown leather, weather-worn, tied with a thin cord. Inside, pages of Daniel's handwriting, notes, schedules, future project sketches, a half-written letter to Mia for her 16th birthday. And then, near the back, a folded sheet of paper, different from the rest. My name on the front, in my grandfather's handwriting. My breath caught. I unfolded it slowly. Caroline, if this letter has reached you, then either I've passed or someone finally stopped trying to keep it from you. Either way, if you're reading this, then know. I left this with Daniel because I feared what your parents might do after I was gone. They've been rewriting the story of our family for years, cutting you out one quiet snub at a time. First birthdays, then weddings, then wills. It's not just favoritism, it's inheritance warfare dressed up as love. You were always the one who never asked for more, but gave it anyway. They mistook your silence for weakness. I didn't. Daniel knew. That's why I trusted him with this. There's more you haven't seen yet. Your mother had me sign over partial control of a trust fund I created for you when you were 17. She said it was for safekeeping, but she rerouted it after your wedding, without your signature. The documents are in the safety deposit box at Fairview Bank, box 214. The key is inside the back flap of this journal. Don't let them tell you who you are, or what you are worth to me. With love always, Grandpa. My hands shook. They rerouted a trust fund? From me? Years ago? I checked the journal. A small slit in the back cover held a single key, thin, brass, marked 214. Fairview Bank was still open, still local. And suddenly, the walls I thought I had already climbed began to crumble again. Because it was never just about Daniel's death, or the inheritance, or the lounge. It was systemic. They had been cutting me out long before the funeral. I had just been too loyal to notice. I didn't cry this time. I didn't rage. I packed the journal in my bag, called my lawyer, and drove to the bank. And as I placed the key into box 214, heart thudding, I whispered aloud, "For every truth they buried, I'm coming back with the shovel." The bank vault was colder than I expected. The manager, an older woman with kind eyes, led me through the back corridors of Fairview Bank and paused in front of box 214. When I handed her the key, she blinked twice at the number, then smiled faintly. "I remember your grandfather," she said. "He used to say, 'What matters most, I lock up for her.' Never knew what he meant until now." She left me alone with the box. It was small, dusty. My hands hovered over the brass handle, and when I finally pulled it open, I found two things inside. A manila folder filled with documents, a flash drive wrapped in a paper band labeled "Play only when you're ready." I started with the folder. Inside were notarized copies of the original trust documents Grandpa had created when I turned 17. The trust was modest then, but generous, designed to mature with compound interest by the time I hit 30. Grandpa had earmarked it for education, business, or whatever future she decides to build. But there were additional pages, transfer